Sure. I was asking for your preferred gender pronouns, if you have them. Mhm. Okay, I hope that everybody will like write them if they have any preferred pronouns. And let's start the round with no delays. I call the Prime Minister for the word.
Do we have OG here?
Hello.
Yeah, so the Prime Minister, we're waiting for you.
Yeah, okay. This house would allow workers to sell their rights in exchange for higher payment. For example, health and safety protection, right to maternity, paternity leave, etc. Most people sell. We allow people to sell their rights for higher payment, because on the long and short run they are the most benefited of it. With the high tuition fees and high housing prices, people are not and other things, people are not able to meet their primary needs. Health issues and maternity leave can be handled, because the primary needs, when they are paid more, are met, and people can save for the second level needs that if they are not met, and luxuries. Jobs and the country and countries that pay enough for people to meet their needs is not that much. It's not that high in number, unless if you were a country, um, world country, then for certain jobs you're gonna get enough payment, like if you were a lawyer, a doctor, or in a health care jobs, you're gonna get enough jobs, and you're gonna get enough payment to meet your needs. But in most of the jobs you can't get enough money to pay for housing and tuition, accommodation. Therefore most people live in without meeting, or have difficulty to meet their primary needs. Therefore, people would be able to afford and get enough money to meet if they sold their rights. If they sold their rights for more payment. Thank you.
Just to check, is it the end of your speech, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your speech. I'd like to call upon the leader of opposition. You have 7 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In my speech, I will talk about two things. First of all, I will provide empirical reasons why for government it will be hard to promote human rights and provide utilities for people of their country. And secondly, I will provide reasons why poor people will suffer even more, and they will not have kind of opportunity to opt out, and they will be in the circle of poorness. But before it, some contextualization of this debate in some rebuttal. Regarding the context about in which country we talk about. First of all, we do not talk about kind of poor countries from the third world and so on. Why it is so? Actually, it is well known that in the country of third world, we have kind of problems with violation of human rights at work, and there is no room that in such countries people can sell their rights, because their rights is already broken by their governments, by the people in their company, and we do not talk about such poor countries. As it's about context of this debate, but we talk about liberal democracies like Europe, America, where this kind of human rights is highly appreciated and it is worthwhile to sell. Secondly, prime minister and opposition bench can talk about stuff like we have kind of needs to sell kind of, you know, we need to meet our primary needs, we need money, we suffer from this. Actually, it is not true. Why it is so? Even on the level of principle, it is not true. First of all, we should realize that people sell their rights, for instance, in health issues, because on this kind of moment they sell it, they need it kind of immediately, like I mean. But in the long term, they do not consider a long-term impact of their decision. For instance, me as a person sell my rights to kind of overwork, yes, or kind of not to go to another company. For instance, now it is fine, but my kind of qualification will rise, I will have better education, and I'm kind of fine to move to another job with higher payments, but I cannot move it. On the long-term perspective, I will be on the same position, on the same company for kind of 10 years, and I will have only this kind of fixed amount of salary, even it is kind of slightly higher than average. I mean, it means that on the long-term perspective, I'm kind of in the one position and I'm suffer from it. Secondly, regarding the health care issues, actually there is no difference and there is no comparative in this debate, because on the other side of the house, you will have kind of free medicine. On the other side of the house, you will not have free medicine, but you have money, and there's no comparative from this point of moment, actually. Turning to our case, what we as a opposition propose in this debate? We say that this debate is about on which side this kind of rights of the people, the utility will be promoted more. Actually, we see on the opposition side, there will be more promotion of human rights, people will be kind of more happy. Why it is so? We say that for government, it will be hard to promote human rights, and they will not have kind of leverage to kind of affect these companies to promote their rights of the people. Why it is so? First of all, in context, actually, when kind of parties and the governments go to the elections, they say that we kind of promise you better life, better rights, kind of minority and this kind of poor people will not suffer, there will be kind of better conditions, actually. We should to realize that government is the kind of best level kind of actor and the best kind of, they have the more leverage to affect upon these kind of companies to promote the rights of the human, to protect the rights of the human, because it's the only actor that can make the changes. Actually, why we say that after kind of implementation of such rule of selling their rights, many people will sell their rights. Why so? First of all, because emotional needs, secondly, because this kind of needs of physical in terms of food. It means that me as a kind of poor people think about only about money that I can take only now. They say you will overwork for kind of 4 hours, but you will have kind of more money. It means that I will not have time to my kind of private life with my friends, with my siblings, and I will into in the work now, and I have kind of sufferings in terms of mental. Secondly, it means that later my health issues can be kind of suffer from this also, because I make this kind of overwork too. In the case it is about not changing their job, the same consequences is kind of applicable, because I cannot move to another job to the better payment that can be in the long term even better for me. What kind of impacts we have kind of from this? Many people overwork. There is more likely that there will be no better promotion of their working conditions, because a capitalism society is not interested in it. Actually, capitalists interested in maximizing their profit, and it flows to my second argument. We see that people in the minority will suffer even more, and it will be bad consequences. Why it is so? First of all, we need to kind of analyze the kind of motives of and the roles of capitalists in this system of selling their rights. It is such companies will try to maximize their profit. In the case they say we will provide you more payment, it doesn't mean that they're gonna be kind of fine with just paying you more payment. More likely that they will provide you harsh working conditions. First of all, secondly, they are going to kind of take away your rights in terms of work. For instance, you will not have right to go to your vacation or just have a rest when you are ill. You will be kind of in the kind of pressure of this kind of capitalist society. What is important, certainly for capitalist people, it is their kind of opportunity to take you in your work. For instance, you are ill and you need to go to your work, but unfortunately to the fact that you have a contract, you cannot go to this kind of rest. But in the case you go to the rest, you will suffer from this kind of fines from this kind of capitalist society because of your contract with this kind of companies, and it will harm you even more. And the kind of summary what we have kind of overwork, not good working conditions, and not way to better job.
POI from CJ.
Thank you for your attention. That's all.
Just a quick note, POI are allowed between first and last minute, and please try to input your POI into the chat, because like audio interrupts speaker, and speakers, please pay attention to the chat, because there you will see your POIs. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister. You have 7 minutes. Here.
Hi, is my voice clear?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, but please, I don't want to be recorded. Okay. First, when the competent employees, advisors, or consultants with stock or option instead of cash, your business will be able to cash for other necessary expenses. For some cash-strapped startups, equality-based financing may be the only option for bringing on board. The right kind of vesting schedule can be help to minimize employee. Typical vesting schedules can be often over for 4 years. That can be either as a pro or a con, as the employees are incentivized to stay on, but not always for the right reason. The key consideration here is the efficiency of a labor standards policy. Will they be improving the human rights among would-be trading partners, or will they slow progress towards human rights by keeping politically powerless workers in poverty? Some countries, including China, might reject otherwise appealing trade deals that contains enforceable labor standards by insisting on tough labor standards, as the wealthy democracies could lay on the moral high grounds, but they might have to have a trade pact that could help
Sorry, we lost you. Prime Minister, are you there?
Yes, sorry. Okay, so we live in Gaza, Palestine, and we have power issues, and probably she's just putting her router on battery to work. Can we give her a few minutes? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I paused the timer. Like she has like 1 or 2 minutes to come back.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I feel like it's been like 4 minutes, or maybe Prime Minister could continue the DPM speech. I think would be fair to do so. Or you have information about your teammate?
No, I don't have any information.
Okay, I think it would be fair if you continue her speech. You have like 5 minutes. Okay?
I don't have information, but thank you for waiting.
Yeah, would you like to continue your teammate speech? Because like she has no? All right. Good. Very sorry about that. Okay, I'd like to invite the deputy leader of opposition here.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good. So 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's start. So dear judges, first of all, to just remind you that opening government is actually basically their case is not relevant to this debate motion, because they're actually talking about that the companies will be able to sell the human rights, and to get rid of the human rights, just to, for example, trade with China or trade with governments that do not support their human rights. And the impact was not set, so I don't know what they want to do. But we believe that this motion is actually about, as my partner said, is a liberal democratic countries where actually the workers individually will decide who they want to sell their rights in exchange for higher pay. And it's actually pretty much legitimate to say our arguments about the liberal democratic countries, because even though we have a sense that liberal democratic countries, it's about the people where everyone understands why do we need all these human rights, why do we need the feminism, why do we need the motions like Black Lives Matter. We believe that not everyone actually understands the impact to their lives if this, for example, these promotions or these human rights will be implemented fully in their life, because they cannot simply understand why do they need these rights. Simply people who didn't experience like a parenting will not understand why do we need that, why do they need, for example, paternity leave, or why do they need some for example, the right to be to quit the job anytime he or she wants. Because actually many people when entering the, for example, the company, yes, they check, is this company is good, is this company is actually acting with these workers pretty much good. They will think that actually everything is done. Like they will not think that they will quit this job in a half of a year or in a year. They will sign the contract that they will be workers of this company, for example, for 5 years, and that's all. And if the government will offer such thing as such thing for workers as selling your workers' rights for some money, obviously we believe that people will be motivated to get more money, to get, for example, another $1,000s per month, just because they are not using some workers' rights in the company, because they believe that the company is pretty much, and actually we believe that it gives the companies a carte blanche to do and they want the workers who sold for students. Because, for example, the possible impact, okay, we will not say that they will be violent towards their workers, like they will not say that they will reuse them hugely, but the negative impact is that the companies could just, every company could just promote all the human rights. They could seem for the workers like some nice companies, like the IT companies seem right now, like we are offering you some cookies, we are offering you everything that you even do not need. And these workers will be like see all these benefits, possible benefits, and they will see that they are actually, a company offers them some huge money for selling their rights. And exactly at this point, the companies using some populistic movements, some populistic motions, some populistic advertisements to get more workers, to get better workers, they will just offer them pretty good money for selling their rights. And it could lead to some negative consequences. For example, for minorities. Before talking about the minorities, I will take the POI from CG.
Okay, I am a 21-year-old, and even though I don't have any children, I understand the needs of what a maternity leave is about. The thing is that I would reject a maternity leave when the money that I would get by rejecting that is that much more crucial to my well-being and my survival that it just can't. It's just my life improves drastically more without the maternity leave. What do you have to say on that?
Okay. So in order to understand what the negative consequences could be, we have to look at, for example, the actors that could be affected hugely. For example, the minorities. For example, let's say the poor people, like generally poor people will suffer more, because the poor people, when obviously the poor people wants more money, they're funding some company which will offer them proper salaries so that they can live in some city and get food every day. These poor people will try to find the company which offers them proper salary, because the government forces companies to give proper work rights to their workers, obviously the company cannot argue with the government and cannot just quit some human rights. They will have to give the workers like a 6-hour a day job, for example, or 8-hour a day and not more. And because of that, the workers cannot get more money. But when they will see such opportunity, like to get more money just because they will sell their right to work less than 8 hours a day, these workers, yes, in the short term they will get money. For example, they will spend for the education, but in the long term, for example, if they will sell the right to quit the job, and they will have to work for full 5 years of the contract, the company will have a huge advantage in this situation, because the company will be legitimate to overuse the worker, like abuse its rights, because the worker actually has to work for 5 years for the company, even though the worker doesn't want to do that or doesn't need. And actually the government supports this motion, and the worker cannot do anything with this situation. The worker will have to accept the situation, because the worker cannot even sue this company for abusing its rights. Also, we believe that not only poor but also minorities will be affected hugely, which are actually suffering today, because even in the liberal democratic countries, unfortunately, many minorities, for example, Mexicans or black people, cannot get promotions in their jobs due to some biases in the companies. For example, in the United States, where, for example, many people do not believe that the Mexicans could get proper education and, for example, be IT workers. Or, for example, the women also can be affected negatively, because as pursuing for proper salary, they will sell, for example, their rights to maternity leave. But when the moment will come and their, for example, the preferences will come, they will cannot do anything with this situation, and they will have to, for example, to accept the situation and suffer from selling the rights in the past. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the member of government for their speech. You have 7 minutes and you may start.
Hello, please give me 1 moment to start. Okay, I am starting right now. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what we are going to explain to you is firstly what is the exact problem and who has the exact problem in this debate, and the problem is on the lower class, and to that I think we can all agree in this debate. Secondly, we're going to explain to you why a choice in the hands of those poor people is that important. Before we do that, we're going to engage in some rebuttal. First of all, the leader of opposition talked to us about the long-term position, how someone cannot advance in a certain position and have raised the study salary that he is having. We completely disagree. This is completely irrelevant to this debate. That kind of advancement in that position has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. It depends on experience and performance, and that salary can increase even with the increase that comes to the salary without the rights. Okay, first of all that. Secondly, we believe that we disagree. They said that those companies will completely lie, and they give the workers harsher working conditions without actually making, for example, without actually increasing the pay this much. We're saying that this isn't this house would make workers do this, we see this is how this house would allow, which means that a deal would be made between the company and the workers in order to create such in order to to agree on the exchange, right? I exchange this amount of rights for this amount, like increase of salary. If that isn't enough, then that will not be agreed upon, will not be accepted, right? Therefore, we give the choice to someone to bargain. The third thing that we want to clarify is that there is this misconception of of OO that they say that people do not understand the benefits of rights and of leaves, etc., etc. We disagree. We believe that people actually do understand the benefits of a state granting them rights, right? And we see that by how strong unions are, who always try to riot and strike for increasing money. We see in the US when mothers are actually are asking for maternity leaves more and more and more. And we see it by when we idolize the Scandinavian states that have actually perfected the excellent working conditions. But the thing is that we want to give the choice to the lower class people, to those people who do not, and now I'm moving on to my constructive case, to those people who actually know that no matter how much they riot, no matter how much they ask for those rights, even if they are granted to them, it is never enough in order to actually fundamentally raise their standard of living. And what do I mean by that? What is the problem in debate? This debate, the problem is that we are facing a world where prices are increasing. And not just that, but also healthcare, the insurance that is given, the regulations that companies use aren't just enough in order to protect those frontline workers. And we're talking about people who are just struggling, right? So they are already underpaid, they are already mistreated by companies, and they are already searching for a way out. We are talking about this specific group of people because these are the people this motion will impact. So why is it justified the state to actually grant this freedom to the individual? We believe that an individual knows its needs far, and this is my first and my main argument actually, that an individual knows what it wants and what it needs far better than the state or an organization does. And why do we believe that? One, because we are talking about those specific states that either don't have the resources or the will and the power, because the companies are lobbying hard enough in order to grant the lower class what they need. And we're talking about states where the bureaucratic mazes and the laws are regulated that way, where companies can move around regulations and can find little windows in order to skip those rights, or not skip, but sometimes not wanting to spend enough money on those rights in order to protect those people. So in those situations, we say it is far better to give someone the individual and that frontline worker the choice and the freedom to actually say, you know what, I don't want these things since these things aren't good enough and you're not willing to do those things in order to fundamentally improve my life. Therefore, I say I don't want them anyway, and I ask for an increase of pay of, I don't know, $300 more, I don't know how much, in order to fend for myself. So I don't want your insurance. I will use that money to go to private insurance and actually pay for my healthcare. I will use that money to hire a babysitter, and in order for me not to actually need a leave, because we agree with the OO that capitalism exists and is here, and those companies just have the power in this world to not be able to do those things, right? To not like change change the course of action. Therefore, what does the frontline lower class individual have to do? They have to go with the flow. They have to be able to earn more money in order to profit and to benefit from that capitalism. And that happens with that money. So we say that for these people, it is far better to just say, you know what, leave your rights out of here, but just give me more money. And we believe that the companies would also agree, because it just makes it most likely makes it cheaper for them in order to just take those money, take those rights and not give them at all, but just increase the pay. Therefore, we have a win-win situation, and we actually manage to help the individual through capitalism and freedom of choice in some way. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to invite the member of opposition for their 7-minute speech. Here.
So starting with your rebuttals, the government said that only poor people sell their right to get rich, but they forget that even the rich can sell their right to get richer. So what happens if everyone starts to sell their right? The rights lose their value, and suddenly the rights will be equivalent to nothing. In a society governed, all laws in the society are based on rights, and by selling one's right, when the value of right goes down, the value of law goes down, and then the decorum, the proper solid basis of society also goes down. Second out, they pointed out how should one way the lower people can earn more money is by selling the rights they own. Selling rights is not the only way to earn money. The government has established various empowerment and financial programs which help the least privileged or low income people to earn money. There are various loan capabilities which they can pay later on. They are in a very low interest, and there are various other programs that are currently being run. So now going to my point. Once we sell right, the exploitation of the human race starts. So if one sells rights, the other will sell their right too. To earn food, So if you have rights, you have something to fight for, or you have something to fight for, something to stick to. But if all the people in the world give up their rights, then all of them will become robots who are programmed by their master however they want. As I said earlier, if by selling rights, people have to compromise with their basic principles of living life. The people in the society will be judged on their assets and rights, which will spoil the world's motivation right now, and people will not fight for them. But when major people, can I drink water first? Yeah, thank you. So I need to rephrase that previous sentence. Currently, in the society, if all the people sell their rights, the people will be judged on their assets and rights which they possess, which will spoil the world's motivation. Right now, people fight for the rights, but when a lot of people sell their rights, the whole world system will be corrupted and will become unfair. The people who have major rights will be the one who are more privileged, and the people who are less rights will be the one who are less privileged. It makes no sense as in selling rights right now, because in this world where we talk about making everyone equal and removing poverty and providing everyone with equal rights, and to remind us we are getting very close to that goal, selling one's right will make this problem more difficult, and we'll have to restart our process all over again, because the rich will become richer with their rights, and the poor will become more poor by selling their fundamental rights, because they will have nothing to fight about. Now, let's say the rights you are selling falls into someone of a negative mindset. What will happen? The people who purchase the rights have power to use it against the person who has sold it to them. So they can use it for any purpose they want. And we, in this modern world, we can't identify each and every person's intention. So if a lot of people suddenly sell their rights for more money to a wrong person, what will happen? The whole world will go into chaos. Let's look at North Korea. People sell their rights for free to the government when they are born. They have no freedom there. They have nothing. Look at the state of North Korea. Their economy is way down. Their quality of life is down. The health, every status in North Korea is down a great margin. No one can question what is wrong and right. The sense of right and wrong is lost when you give up your rights, because you have to follow the person who has a lot of right, and you in no ways can question him. So this proves that selling right is not the only option. A person can become more. Selling rights is no option to make a person rich. And to continue, selling rights, we have also seen it. Before continuing, I would like to take the POI.
Okay. So from Sydney, we are talking about those people who have reached the point where they see that the rights that they get from the state or those companies aren't enough in order to make their standard of living better. So they need that money in order to use them individually to cover their own needs. What do you say on that? How do you engage on that?
Yeah, so to answer the POI, we have seen various, let's talk about maternity rights. We have seen various companies provide incentive and other substantial amount of money to the currently working mothers in their companies, and they have been privileged to work from home, and on top of that they are getting salaries plus bonuses just to take care of their babies. So there are various ways company and government are helping people to sustain themselves. They are helping people to improve their quality of life. They are helping people to improve their life. Let's take a look at USA. What happened previously in USA was all the black people had sold their rights for free and since had been very mistreated. Selling right also creates inequality in the society, and this is a very strong point, because we have just seen the case of George Floyd. If all the black people had sold their rights, there would be nothing left to fight for. All the black people would still be our slave. So selling rights is not an alternative. There are various alternatives that have been implemented and are working well to make everyone equal, to make sure everyone gets equal payment, to make sure everyone has an equal status. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your fine speech. I'd like to invite the government whip. You have 7 minutes here.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about two things in this debate. First of all, about the achieving of better quality of life for the most vulnerable people, and secondly, about the equality. So, first of all, right now, OO told us at the beginning that many people gonna sell their rights. When people see money, people just lose their mind, and they're unable to take decisions logical and think logical and understand whether or not they have to do that and to sell it. But is this so realistic? We don't think so. If I go and tell you that I'm going go and sell your rights, probably you're gonna think about it, and you are most likely to this. If it's not necessary for you, you will prefer to keep those rights, as my partner already explained, because those rights already is very important. So we think that in case if someone agreed to sell his right is because he really needs that, is because he prioritized all the rights and other things over, for example, the security on his shop, because, for example, it's more important for him to eat every day and to cover the needs of himself and of other members of his family. Okay, so yeah, so actually CEO continue on that line and told us that if all people give their rights, we will have a terrible world and stuff like that. But we are not talking about this scenario. We are talking about the specific group of really poor people. We have a lot of countries in which the salary is lower than the average cost of life, in which people have to do things and find a way to manage their life, and they are not alternative to get and to gain like these benefits. So we think that we have to provide them the choice to actually decide what to do. So if you are working somewhere and you don't have money and you have 5 children, you can and you can't help them. You prefer to sell your rights. So we prefer to give them more opportunities to those people. So opportunities that right now doesn't exist. Actually, CEO told us that we will lose equality, but we are talking that already equality doesn't exist already. Those people don't have even the chance to live like a normal life. So we just giving them the opportunity to prioritize and to decide what they want. They told us that we are going to lose the sense of their rights. Not because simply we believe that some rights for those people are more important than other, and this person have to decide by himself. Okay. So what we say is that no matter which needs we're talking about, we have a lot of cases in which it is very important, and we have to care about this. Okay, POI from opening. Not POI from closing.
Yeah, so does this mean that if a person wants to get money, he or she can sell their every rights? Does not this mean that a person would heavily depend upon selling their rights rather than doing hard work or something else?
If a person will sell, if I'm a mother and I have children and I will sell those rights, I rather prefer to sell those rights and to help myself, my family, and other people. So firstly, those people, which is the most vulnerable group, will be helped, and secondly, they will have money to help not only themselves but also the members of this family. So for that reason, we think that we have to provide this opportunity to them. So okay, so we really believe that only people who really needs those money gonna do that. As Elena already told you, because this decision is really important. You don't just go and say, I have the opportunity to take money, let's sell my right. No, you think about this. Also told us that we are talking about people in liberal democracies, and then they told us that they will not gain money because we are in a capitalistic society, and like companies will not give them money. So we think that's not true. That's actually a little bit contradictory, because in liberal democracies we have like a lot of standards, and we have some norms which companies have to follow. So basically, first of all, there will be contracts. Secondly, as I already told you, the person will decide. So it's not, we are not forcing him to do that. So that's not true. So okay. So for this reason, we don't think that this is important in this debate. Also, the POI from other no, it's okay. So all right, okay. So we really believe that the point that we bring in this debate is the most important thing, because we really think that those people should be helped, and we can do that by providing this motion. All stuff that they bring us in another side of the house, it's less important than this opportunity. They never prove us the actual harm, one realistic harm that we can gain from that. And even if those people, even if they didn't prove, but even if we have some harms, we truly believe that it's more important even to have a little, a little amount of harm in order to gain a lot of benefits for this group of people. For all those reasons,
All right, thank you very much for your fine speech. I'd like to invite the last speaker of the round, opposition lab. You have 7 minutes.
Yes, so to begin with, let's just listen to what the proposition side brought to us. They told us firstly that the people who are going to sell their rights are going to be poor people. And the second closing government told us that they will provide them a choice to do this. So now just look at this from our side of the house. So firstly, when we are giving choice, which is most preferably to the poor people, they will fall into this well-laid trap. What do I mean by this? We have seen poor people doing illegal things. That's because not because they want to do, but because of the fact that they don't have money. They want to earn money. So here's what we are doing. When you are even giving a choice to them, they will be forced to abide by that choice, by that choice. Let me tell you why. Because money is necessary for all. And when you are giving this choice to them, they were of course going to sell their right in order to get the money. And that's what we oppose from side opposition. Now let me tell you the reasons why we oppose to this. Firstly, if a person starts selling all their rights, then won't that person be heavily dependent upon just selling their rights? They will just stop doing hard work. I mean, a person would not do hard work because they can sell their right and earn their money. The person would be heavily dependent on their right. Rights would be their last resort. And coming back to this, right is also very limited. I mean, a person can just have, let's say, 10 rights, 15 rights. What happens after the right finishes? The example which the proposition side gave us about the mother, that does not finish there. I mean, that problem arises when all their right has been sold and they still have the problem of the money. But however, we gave you a better alternative. We told you about loan, how they can take loan, and that's actually a very sustainable solution, not selling your right. And second thing, we tell you about why this hampers the human rights. I mean, when we have human rights, when actually the United Nations has sat upon and has written 30 articles about the human rights, this actually justifies upon the fact that why rights is very important, why rights of every person needs to be preserved. And we relate right. A person who has some right is related to the respect of a person. So when one person is selling his or her right, that means that the person is selling their respect. And that's what is very important. Important thing in a society is respect. We work, we earn money, we do everything to gain respect. However, when a person who has no choice, most preferably a poor person who has no choice, will be forcefully has to sell their right, which means that they are selling their respect. Now, coming back to it, the closing opposition also talked about democracy. We also believe that it hampers the democracy. Democracy means that all people are equal, which also implies the fact that all persons have all the rights from the human rights articles, all the rights from the fundamental right articles. However, when a person has the liberty to sell their right just because they are poor, and that's the only resort the government is putting in front of them, then they have to do it. And that's what is hindering the democracy, or something we call equality, because the person is going to sell the right, and some person might have more right, some person might have less right. And democracy does not work like that. Democracy means that everyone is equal to the people, for the people, by the people. And when someone owns a higher right, then that's going to be problematic in a nation. Now, let me talk about the impacts. The impact is that the poor person who sell poor person, every poor people, regardless of the fact in which country they're living, they will be forced to sell their rights. And the rich people will buy their rights happily because they just want to spend money. And things such as donations and INGOs will also not work. I mean, people would rather not donate to INGO and give but however give the money to some person if they give them right. I mean, the concept of INGO or other organization in some ways fails, because a rich person would more likely be able to more likely be happier to donate to INGO from where he's getting nothing, but you will be giving to a person where he gets a right, and right means something very important, something valuable. That's the reason why we are discussing it over here. And this is something that hinders the concept of equality, right? Like we mentioned previously, some people are going to not be considered equal and some are. Yeah, before that, I'm going to take a POI. POI.
Okay. So we do agree that every person should have human rights and every person should recognize that. But when you get to the point where those rights aren't recognized, aren't given fully by the state or the company that is employing those people, what's the best way to manage to raise the standard of living of those people? Granting them more money in order to fend for themselves, or try to unionize against a powerful company that can lobby against government?
Firstly, what I believe is that the question should be of 50 seconds. However, you violated the fact. Now, moving on to your answer, the thing is that when a right is not being recognized in the committee, I mean, in a organization, so is the viable solution, is giving up the right the viable solution? Of course no. So just look at this like this: when the blacks who didn't have any rights, I mean, when their rights were exploited, so would giving away their right be the best options? Of course no. We can rally against it, we can raise our voice. That's why it's very important. When we sell our rights, then what happens? We'll get exploited, we'll be used, and that's what we don't want. We want everyone to be recognized, everyone's voice to be heard. However, if your right is not being heard, then I mean, the selling is not a best option. We need to raise voice against it. Now, few questions for the opposition side. Can a rich person buy the same right from everyone? They didn't answer this to us. Second, right is a very abstract word. How can it be ensured that a person who sold a right will not own that right? I mean, that can be misused. This power can be misused by a person. So if he or she wants the right back, then what should that person do? Now, just as and these are the questions which the opening government or the closing government failed to answer, and thus we think we back the debate. Thank you.
Thank you for a very fun debate. I think we with Nursul will go either to the breakout room or to the Discord to deliberate. Asim, could you throw us into the breakout room, me and Nursul?
I'm sorry. Should we leave this room? Should we will you guys go somewhere else? How is this going to work? Oh, okay, okay. I will wait for the breakout room.
Came to a united synchronological order, and then we're going to give some advice. Okay. So the call is first goes to closing government, second goes to opening opposition, third goes to opening government chronological order. What opening government brings to the table is that they give some kind of framework. They try to explain some kind of mechanisms that what kind of rights we're going to give away for money, right? And they say that their logic is that people want to meet basic needs, and nowadays it's very hard for them to sustain some kind of tuition fees, sustain some kind of primary needs. Therefore, they should have this right. But yeah, the advice here is to give some kind of more mechanisms, because open opposition comes and tells that people will be like forever trapped in this poverty because they will, for example, sign 10 years or 5 years contract, and this will be like very extreme, and they really like try to over exaggerate the harms that people are going to take. Therefore, on the open government, it would be better to make some mechanism, for example, to prevent your case from extreme cases. For example, could people really be trapped like slaves or not? Like in which cases they could leave the job or sue the company and so on. Yeah. So from the opening government, unfortunately, we didn't guess the like latter part of the case, and therefore we like based your inputs in this debate by this carcass, like this foundation that you gave us, that people need basic needs to be met. What open opposition brings to the table? First of all, they say that people are most likely to be irrational and not appreciate their rights because they think that human rights is about like having cookies in the Google office or something like that, and therefore they are likely to change them for money. This is their like logic. Secondly, they say it will be very hard to promote human rights because nowadays like companies will be tempted to by using this mechanism, and they will try to force more people to sell their rights in order to like exploit them to the fullest and get more money. Thirdly, they bring to the table the case about minorities, and they say that for minorities it will be like even worse than for everyone else. So first of all, I guess that opening government didn't really contest this framing that some people will be giving their rights away. And the comparison here is simply not like it's hard to make a comparison because on opening government we didn't get enough like analysis rather than just saying that people want to meet basic needs. And it would be better for the opening government to compare how the situation will change comparing to status quo, like why these poor people or like other people will feel better and what will change for them, because now open opposition has more logical chains and to support their case, like the theses that they make. So what they say is firstly, hard to promote human rights. And here, the advice would be to explain more like the mechanisms, why it is just harder for the government to control the companies, and what is this, how in status quo like government can control the companies. Because it's hard to understand, for example, what will change if as CG will later say, human rights are already suffering and companies are already like trying to capitalize the labor and so on. So it would be better to work on this explanation, what will be now, what will be then, and what is now. Yeah, and then you say that many people will sell their rights. Yeah. Okay, but still, this kind of impact stays on the opening opposition, that yes, some people will sell their rights and so on. And the people are irrational makers. And then here comes the closing government, and closing government agrees and actually defines us the most yeah, just they agree with open opposition on the most like relevant decision maker, the most relevant actor in this debate. They say it's lower class, and here goes the most like interesting clash. Actually, the most like fruitful clash of this debate is about who is the best decision maker to like whether to sell rights or to not. Open opposition tells that this is the government because government has fought for human rights for so many times, like not fought, but maybe like try to change the law, try to regulate the companies. The government is trying to bring the good to the people and so on, because people are themselves irrational. But what closing government says is that actually it's not that easy. And first of all, they say that people are better, like they can better access or assess what is better for them. Why is it so? Because, for example, yes, for example, I should not need this paternity leave, right? At my current job, because I'm probably not planning to have a child when I'm even until 40 years, I'm not planning to have a child and so on. And also they say that maybe moreover, which is very important, even if I want my rights to be sustained, this is not always possible even in the liberal democracies as US, because there are still low status jobs, there are still like capitalistic incentives, there is still prices rising and hard to pay for insurance, hard to pay for your housing, you have family, you have additional burdens in your life. And therefore I, as a human, probably know my life better and probably know that, yes, I can stand actually working 4 hours or 10 hours more this week, but still get like additional $30 to pay for my child education or courses and so on. And moreover, what they say is that for humans, it's actually hard to impact the situation that they have right now. They are trapped in it already because there are like lobby of the corporations. There is still like very hard to make the regulations to be passed and so on. And moreover, like why should people really need to spend their lives on like rioting, on signing the petitions, on voting and so on, when first, A, it's not really efficient all the time. Second, when you have short-term needs that you want to be fulfill. And this is how their case goes. Yeah, so we believe in this comparison, open opposition didn't really explain that much why actually more people than just the poor will be trapped, like because closing government says, hey, like if I'm satisfied with my conditions and I'm satisfied that I have a good like good atmosphere around me, I don't overwork, nobody forces me to do additional job that I don't want to do. In this case, we believe that open opposition doesn't really explain the mechanisms, how companies are going to force people to make the decision if they're not forced to by the law, right? Yeah, and we will come back to the clash a bit further. Now comparing closing government's case with closing opposition's case. Closing opposition brings us like the same ideas as the open opposition, like they stand for the same ideas, right? For the equality of rights, and they believe that like it will be much worse for poor people because they're going to suffer even more, and like work themselves until they literally fall from their legs and so on. But here we believe that closing government already shows you the extent of the fact that there is no real alternative to this status quo. That even status quo, you have your rights being breached because corporations, they kind of try to find this kind of spots in the law and try to skip them. For example, they can buy like cheaper equipment, but de facto the equipment is still on place, but it's much cheaper and so on. And therefore people don't want to use the goods that the government is providing to them, and they rather like allocate the resources given in their own lives. Secondly, like closing opposition tells us that thereby, when people sell their rights, they're going to become literal slaves. In this case, we don't believe this is very relevant because, yeah, there are many spheres of life that you have. It's not only a job, right? And it's not like you're going to like stop fighting because you still go, you still can give up some of your rights and still protest, still go to the unions. There is still this alternative, right? And moreover, when you say such a big, strong statement, you put a big burden upon yourself when you say that everyone will sell this rights, because yeah, closing government tells and specifies you that this is just a small amount of people who are really in need. And the good thing that closing governments tells here is that makes that they work with the worst case, and they believe that yes, even if these people are going to suffer more, at least it's going to be their choice. At least they believe that the other sphere of life, for example, family, is compensating for this harm that they are getting nowadays. Second point that closing opposition tells us is that people, like rich people, will have more rights, and like they will be like less judged, less oppressed in the system, to which we don't really receive enough like logical chains, at least chains that are a bit different from the opening opposition. Yeah, another point that we heard from closing opposition was that people will work less hard because they will be just selling their rights easily, and we don't really understand the mechanism. First of all, why is it true, right? Secondly, why is it bad if it's true? Because people, even if they work less, they probably get their money, and therefore they're more satisfied. And thirdly, like what if not? Like what if they don't work less hard, right? And another assumption that closing opposition did is that people already fall in the trap of poverty, they already do illegal things and so on. But this point actually, the point that people already go to illegal things to earn money, it actually supports the closing government's case here, because it tells you like, hey, people are already going into that things, they already breach the law and so on to survive. Why not just give them the right to sell the rights and be more obedient and more satisfied citizens, right? Another point that we got from the closing opposition was that NGOs won't work that much, but first of all, it was brought on the whip, and second of all, we didn't get enough explanation on that to really consider it as a part of the case. And comparing closing opposition with opening government. Here we believe that opening government at least brought us some kind of logic that is right, at least for some people. That for some people it's better to meet their basic needs rather than suffer and like not have enough rights and not be able even more like to pay for living, pay for insurance and so on. And for at least we believe, at least for some people, it would be better to really meet these basic needs, but stay at work a bit more and so on. Because we believe that it was explained better on the government side that like having some food on your table or having your family fed and safe is actually like more acceptable than let's say like this. It's worse for me to not have food and not have security for my family rather than to overwork. At least that's how they debate it. And on the closing opposition, we have mostly some kind of not theses that were theses that were explained only on that a bit superficial level, and therefore we couldn't really consider also given that the ideas were really close with the open opposition, that it will be hard to fight for human rights and so on. Therefore, we can't really count that. And this is also the comparison with the open opposition, because at least on open opposition, we have some logical chains and frames that yes, people don't understand the human rights that much. Yes, people will be tempted by money, and unnecessarily big amount of people will go and give up their rights, and it will be better for companies and so on. Yeah, and what clash is actually left is, yeah, I guess we have compared all the tables by the time. And one piece of advice also would, before Elena explains, it would be to also consider what is more good for the companies themselves. Like on open opposition, we get the point that companies are really interested and motivated to force people to give up their rights, because like yeah, because it's probably cheaper for them. But how is it cheaper? Or what is the status quo for companies? Do they really pay that much for rights that they give you or not? In closing government, we get that these companies will be like more likely. Yes, they will want to give you this money because like it's still cheaper than the conditions that that they provide you with right now. It's not really maybe it's just me, but a little bit of a contradicting thing, because you say that people like, yeah, you say that companies already like put so little in giving you these rights, but why it would really make a big change for me to have this little money that they spent on my rights, right? But maybe it was, maybe it is tied to a case that even if I get this little amount of money, yeah, it's still better for me. Okay, I think Alina should give you some recommendations.
Yeah, some stuff that I would add to the feedback is, okay, so I have some additional feedback for the opening position. I think that you really have a good, like, you're doing a good job explaining why people will overwork, why people will suffer at work and stuff like that. But when we compare this to the closing government, we actually can't credit you that, because they also show how people are suffering in the status quo. What would be better from your side of the house is compare these long-term and short-term consequences. You're not doing that. You're just saying that, look, people are choosing short-term, whatever, over long-term, yeah? But it's not really explaining me why long-term is better, why having insurance, why having maternity leave is more important than having extra $10 every hour, right? So in this case, we cannot really understand why is it better. But like closing government have some reasoning why is it better, because it's like my own choice, and I know that I will never have kids, I will never suffer from whatever disease, yeah? And in this case, I don't care about that. I better have those $10, right? So yeah. Also, some additional piece of feedback for the closing opposition is, yeah, so for the closing opposition, I feel like you, as a team, is a little like really different, and you're not protecting like one argument or one case, because you also, as a closing opposition, have some obligation to compare you with the opening halves. And given that your case is really similar to the opening opposition, you really should have done that and show where like your new material is. Also, I'd like to say that your case is a little like puts a really big burden to your table, because like it's really hard to prove that people would really sell their lives, sell their like rights to live, or rights, really important rights, right? So intuitively, it's really hard for me to believe that. And moreover, you never explain why people would do that, right? So it's that's why we're having hard time understanding your case. Yeah, and what I meant about like two speakers not defending one side is that the whip is is not doing like the defense of his partner. It is better to always mention what your partner said and defend that, and to compare this material to the other tables rather than adding more new material, because these new arguments will not be counted and by us, because we see that it's completely new and never mentioned by your partner. So yeah, this is like general pieces of advices that I would give to, that I would additionally give. Thank you. If you want personal feedback, you can stay and ask for it, but if you don't want, see ya.
Yeah, actually, I want something.
All right, so
so
I'm
actually,
sorry.
the whip from the government whip. I don't know if you want to tell it now, or I should communicate with you later. What do you prefer?
Yes, sorry, I think. Elena, are you frozen?
all right.
Yeah, I think our whip, sorry, not whip, wing is a bit frozen. Yeah, Elena, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
Do you have some feedback for government whip?
Yeah, I have one. Okay, so I think issue with your speech is that your speech is really repetitive of your partner's speech. You repeat a lot and you add some of the examples, which is kind of valuable because it's a new contribution and it allows us to understand better your case. But still, it's very repetitive of your partners. If you want to like improve your case, you really have to bring some of the comparisons into your speech and some of the weighing and comparing with the other teams. Yeah. So in this debate, it would be really easy to show us that you're winning over opening government and over opening opposition, right? So just point out why you're winning, do kind of biased judging on your whip, and it will be really better whip. Yeah. So yeah, you also I think it would be like helpful if you could maybe watch some lectures about weighing, lectures about whip speeches. They're really helpful to understand how to structure your speech. Yeah. But in general, do more weighing, do more meta debates, stuff like that.
Could I have also some personal feedback on CG member of government? By the way, Nursu, hi. We met in Eindhoven Open. We slept on the same bed.
Yes. I was wondering like
How
whether
are
it's
you?
you or not.
Yeah. So glad to see you. I will also text you later to, I don't know, organize. Okay. Please give me the.
So like looking through your speech, I guess it was overall good. And just some, I think, advice would be to say like even if these people get really not much money, even if they give up their rights, why even this little money would be really helpful for them? Because you say already that companies allocate so little money to support human rights like within their company. Why it's still better to have this small amount rather than use this like bad utilities and so on? And yeah, it's good that you make the comparison with the real world, with the status quo right now, and so on. And probably it would be good to make a criteria, like why long term doesn't really matter in this case, like why the intensity of this harm is that big, and we cannot just ignore it. And probably, what else?
I feel like you could address some of the issues of the that opening opposition mentioned. Something like, oh, companies will manipulate with our like with the workers' minds, and they will force them to sell their rights or whatever, right? So I think it's important to address that. Why, for example, unions will tackle that, or we will regulate that, or it will be really hard to affect workers. Maybe it's actually not so important for a company because it's cheaper for them to it's cheaper for them, for example, to buy a lot of insurances like at once because it's cheaper rather than give out the money for the people every I don't know, every month, right? So something like that, you should address that because it's like kind of the thing where we were a little we were thinking about that, right? So this was the issue.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. Well, I was thinking actually that it is maybe cheaper to. I wanted to make a case about why the companies would more likely prefer our side of the house, but I thought about it like last minute, and I just mentioned it in like one quote by the end of my speech. But I actually thought that it's probably cheaper to, rather than pay for someone's insurance or pay for someone's like health like thing like safety inside the company or the factory, or pay for like the law pay for like if someone gets hurt, to pay for everything has to go